work is completely affected by my heritage in every way. My family mixture of, the native culture plus the European art schools and going to museums and different things like that. And so my heritage is what it is, which is, the people, the reason I put fish in this is that the tribes are fishing tribes up there. My tribe is the Chinook tribe, and it was once the largest tribe. It took up, actually, I was going to bring a map, but I figured it would be better to just send you the map and you could use it and edit it in. So, but it's where the Columbia River, the Palyx, and several other rivers come together right above Astoria, between like Portland and like Seattle, Tacoma area. There's a body of water, and it's also well known as the Columbia Bar, which is where the ships had over and over kept crashing, and our chief Comcomly was actually helpful in getting them across the bar. And we were the first, like Lewis and Clark, when they ended up down there, we were the first tribe. And it was this huge tribe that was then declared extinct. We're in an unusual position that even though we were the biggest tribe and had, well, not the biggest tribe, but in that area, the biggest tribe, and had an incredible population, that the lower figures are like 19,000. And, but they never did a treaty. Well, they never ratified the treaty by Congress, so they never agreed to give their land up. And then this caused a stir, and in the 40s and 50s, enrolled Indians there made a deal, well, actually earlier, but what they did was they took all the tribes and conglomerated them into one big tribe, mostly with people that were already enemies, and took those unrecognized tribes and forced those enrollments into a different tribe, which then all of our land was considered to be part of that, which created incredible infighting. And then my father left and became an architect and basically passed for white. And so I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and New York a little bit, and so I encountered a lot of museums and cultures. So my art is a mixture of the art from that area, the history and the magic that I was told as a child about that area, because my grandmother and my father knew people who were pre-contact, and there was still old Indian villages up there. And then recently, they have built a new plank house, and it's called Casa Potlo, and it is a brand new but reconstructed near Portland, in the Portland Valley, because the tribe where my tribe is now is just this little point of land called Tansy Point, and now it's Chinook Point again, which we bought back. But that whole area was all our tribe. So it's a fishing, this particular show, because it was about relatives, I thought should be about fish. I love to do it anyway, and so that's how that informed it, is that the Chinook is the salmon people, but not just the Chinook, all the tribes up there and all the way up through Alaska and everything. That's how they make their living, and that's what they lived off, and that's the kind of environment that tribe had, which was a very abundant. And the Pacific Northwest tribes are not very well recognized because Hollywood chose a different model. And so when people think of Native American, they think of, Sitting Bull, but they don't think of like totem poles or fishing villages and things like that. So it's always influencing my art in every way. But my heritage is also the European culture as well. So that should be reflected, I think, when you look at my art. Well, I used to collaborate a lot with my father, who passed away, but he was an elder and had, like I said, had memories of this stuff from when he was a little boy, roaming around in the woods and seeing the old Indian villages and the elders who were still alive, who still spoke the language, and his mother did. His mother went to one of those infamous Indian schools. And so that all influences my creative process. So I used to create with him, talk about ideas and things like that, but I definitely let stuff stew for quite a long time. I don't have a formula that I use. And I'm always exploring. And for me right now, the creative process is different for each piece, but right now what it is a lot about is exploring the return to some of that, early knowledge that everybody's craving for right now, like that, because our earth is on fire and our ice, everything's melting and we have crazy. And so I'm trying to the reason I'm doing fish a lot is that for me, not only is it my family and my relatives, but it's also my subconscious. It's like deep, and water, and that's what we need, and water and fish, and that kind of explains my process, that I generally come up with ideas, but then it just becomes my subconscious talking to you at some point in the process, usually. Not always. Sometimes it's just pretty. Well, interestingly, the one that's called Fitties, it's kind of a flatter version of these, is because I started using nets and different things, and it is a series that I'm developing. And that one was actually designed by my dad before he passed away several years ago. He sent me a little paper, like a little card with that drawing on it. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And so then I projected it up onto the wall as it was, but just instead I used paint. And then I let it sit and sit and sit. And a lot of what I do is work actually, for example, that's a very good example of one of my paintings, because I had the thing for a long time that my dad drew, and then I finally decided to transfer it, and then I let that sit there forever, like years, and then I did a little bit more, and then I finally finished it one day. And I do that pretty often. But a lot of the paintings that I do multiples at the same time. For example, the first one up there was the first one I did, and it looks very different than all of them. Well, that one was the first one that I started, and then that one's the first one that I finished. So yeah, so it is a combination of like long-term thought and then quick application, if possible. That's what I like. So I have it almost like the Zen monks have it, like I almost know exactly what it's going to look like when it's done. But of course it takes its own ways. The painting always tells you what it needs to have, kind of. I tend to see things through almost a verdigris or a rusted lens, and it's not just in the underwater, but I do agree. A lot of it is because I do use metallic paint, and I do like that rust color, and verdigris especially. In fact, I'm thinking now I'm going to do even more, like you've mused me, but I'm thinking about doing maybe even more of those pools looking down, so because the verdigris and the rust and the gold and like that are kind of, I think they really speak to me right now, and I've always loved that look, like copper rusting, kind of. Yeah, thank you. It's a good observation, and it ticked something. It ticked a box for me where like, yeah, I can go in that direction a little more. Yeah, and I try for abstract expressionism. I like that. I just I have a tendency to be kind of precise, and I do like to draw perfect images, but actually it's much easier for me than to spread out and get impressionistic or expression, abstract impression, expression. But yeah, I definitely want there to be, the other thing that's really important actually, and I really sort of led with this, is that, and in fact there's, as far as the goal of what my work is one, is I do like to try to think of it as opening up a portal so that like the native, like people who are dead can like come and look in and out, kind of sci-fi thing, or maybe even pass through, because like we need their guidance. And the other one is to try to bring something that people think of as extinct. You see, because the thing that the American government did, because we didn't have a treaty with them and so we owned on the land, is, they're extinct. So my uncle, and you hear this a lot, it's like, I was in school, I was the only person that was there that was extinct. No other classmates were, So that's part of it, is to kind of bring that forward into the future, or the past, bring the past into the, so that, in other words, we're a living, breathing thing, not a dead guy on a horse that once lived a long time ago that you can romanticize about. No, we fish, we run out of money, we go more fishing, whatever it is, that living thing. And I think that what you pointed out to me is that there's kind of a veil of both, that you're seeing the older ones and in the expressionism and the impressionism and the older, and the rusty thing has a lot to do. I think the net thing was completely actually an accident. I had a canvas, I was opening up some cantaloupe, I looked at it and it fell on the canvas like, oh, or I looked at it, it looked like a fish. I put it on the canvas, it fell in a specific pattern, and then that's that painting. And that, now I'm using net because it's available, recycling, and it's kind of ironic. The fish is the net and the net is the fish. And so, but that was a complete accident. It just happened to be I shopped at a different store and I got the net. And so that's kind of how, the other thing about painting, and I thought maybe you were going to say this when you said the thing about painting is that the paint informs you as well. Like, it does what it's going to do. So like if you have a big canvas and you start throwing paint at it, it's going to drip this way and it's going to do that. And so a lot of us, many of us, like to experiment with all those weird things that can happen with paint. So that's part of my journey, is I just like to paint. You asked me to paint this blue, I probably wouldn't like the color, but I'd say sure. As long as I'm painting, I'm usually pretty happy. So a lot of it is just experimenting with it. And then when people give you the feedback, then you're like, oh, is that what that was? Because sometimes it is so subconscious we don't know. It's not. I try not to be very didactic, and make people have to see. I want them to get their own thing from it. I mean, there's not a lot in fish, or maybe there is for you. I don't know. Well, I'm really psyched about it. Professionally, for me, it is a new experience, and I'm actually really into the whole Long Beach thing. I like to go visit and look and see, and I like the people. And so it's kind of nice for me to be in this area, but also, it's been hard to have shows in this time period. So it's really exciting to have this going on. This group in particular, the way I met them was really very interesting. My mom had lived in not assisted living, just an elder place. And then Kat and Nadia put a show there, but I had a show there, and so I met them that way. And so it was kind of kismet. And my mom died before I even had my first show with them. So this is a very meaningful thing for me. And it's a really nice space, and I think that I wish it was able to get people in here, just because it would be fun to, it is a closed space, and it'll be a lot of fun to see people going up close to the art. But it's always an honor to be involved in something like this, and I think it's also beautifully curated, and yeah, so it's a good thing, because right now, and another thing is, we were having tons and tons of shows, I was anyway, and then nothing. But this one was able to keep going, so I'm really happy about that too. It's nice to see that people are going forward and having shows, even if they're on virtual.